When we speak about being tested, we refer to it in modern vernacular as being challenged. Person's challenged. When a person's challenged, we use this term, a person has a certain handicap, he has a certain health issue, mental issue. The person is a challenged person. Every human being is challenged. And the whole purpose of existence is that despite the challenge, or when you are challenged, to step up to the plate and do the right thing despite the challenge. And if you succeed, then you're classified in the positive column, and that's being tested. Now, there's a concept that if a test is too difficult to succeed, is that a test? I'd mentioned the Talmud tells us that this was in the time when the Jews were in Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar, the Babylonian emperor who destroyed the first temple, he made an image of himself, and he issued a decree that anyone who does not bow to his image will go into the kiln. So there were 4 Jews who would not bow. 3 of them were from the tribe of Judah, Hananiah, Mishael, Azariah. They would not bow to the image of the king. And the king says, whoever doesn't bow goes in the kiln. All of the Jews, every one of them bowed. These 3 who were related to one another, they would not bow. And they were courtiers in the court of the emperor. They would not bow. So he gave the order. They went into the kiln. Miraculously, as Avram came out of the kiln alive, these 3 descendants of his also came out of the kiln alive. Daniel, the famous Daniel in the lion's pit, he was thrown into a lion's pit. Miraculously, he was not devoured by the lions. And he came out whole, safe. So the Talmud tells us that the only reason why they did not succumb to bowing was because the death was instantaneous. He gave them an ultimatum. Either you bow or you go into the fire, the kiln. What about if they would have tortured them by beating them? So the Talmud says that if they would have beaten them, they would have submitted and they would have bowed. It's only because the ultimatum was instantaneous death by going to the kiln. That's the reason why they were able to meet the challenge. But to meet the challenge, to be beaten and to be tortured, to tolerate that level of pain, they wouldn't be able to tolerate the pain, and they would have bowed. So the commentators ask, if it's idolatry, how can you say these great Jews, they would have succumbed to the pain and bowed? How's it possible? A Jew has to give his life not to be an idolater. So how could the Gemara say it's only because the ultimatum was instantaneous death rather than extended period of torture? That's why they didn't bow. I mean, we're speaking, these are special Jews. The most special, they merited a miracle. So to say if they would have been beaten, they would have bowed. So the ones who asked, the early commentator who asked the question, give an answer. The Chassam Sofer explains that the Gemara says, the Talmud says, if they would have been beaten, they would have bowed. So the question now is, why weren't they beaten? Why weren't they beaten? The reason why they weren't beaten is because they couldn't have met that challenge. Everything we're confronted in life, that level of confrontation is a doable. You could deal with it. You have the wherewithal within your emotion, within your intellect, within your experiences to be able to overcome whatever that challenge is, to succeed and not to succumb. But it was only within the capacity, it wouldn't have been an extended period of pain. It had to be instantaneous. The Gemara is saying, if they would have been tortured, they would have bowed. So why did God torture them? Have them tortured because it was beyond their pay grade. They wouldn't have been able to deal with that. So every challenge we have, the challenge is tailor-made to each individual person. For one person, it's not even the challenge. It's a breeze through. Another person, it's overwhelmingly impossible. Another person, based on who he is, his emotional, mental makeup, his education, his orientation, he's able to deal with that. Other people can't deal with it. So for him, it's a challenge. For other person, it's so overwhelming, you just destroy him. Now, who is the one who makes this evaluation? Who knows the emotional, mental, physical makeup and pain quotient in every human being? People have different pain quotients. Some have low, some have high. Only God knows. God knowing this, he writes the script. It's a personal script for each individual. This is your narrative in your life. These are going to be all the impediments, all the temptations, all the roadblocks, if you want to scale that mountain. I've never gone skiing before, and I'm not ashamed to say it. I mean, you never went to Vail. You never went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming. You never went to Utah. I'd be ashamed to show my face. I'm not ashamed. It's okay. I never went skiing, but I know that when people ski based on their expertise in skiing, some person skis a hill, another person skis a slope. Based on your agility and experience and the extent of period you've been skiing, they will give you that terrain that you have to ski. But to give a novice, a beginner, the terrain of a person who's an expert skier who's been skiing for 20 years, who's in first class physical condition, the man's going to come out minimally on a stretcher. They're going to have to helicopter him off that mountain. He's not going to make it. But why for one person it's so easy, the other person so difficult or impossible? It's a different reality. Every person has his own reality. Now, who knows whose reality? So anybody in life who's confronted with an issue, temptation, person has greed, and there's a question, he may justify stealing. And he rationalizes, God forbid. That moment, if the person would know in his own mind, and he doesn't want to do the wrong thing, I have the ability to really suppress this moment and walk away. If you don't walk away, that means, although you know that, you're going to be held accountable. You're only held accountable for something that's within your pay grade. Something's within your ability. Something's beyond your ability. That's called coercion. Coercion, the action is not attributed to you. But who makes this evaluation? Only God himself. So we say God is the creator. He's Borei Umanik. He creates and he guides. Each person that exists is part of the objective of bringing the world to perfection. Through our own perfection, through our own challenges. He's also Ose V'yaseh. He made, he makes, and he will make. There's no aspect of existence. You have 8.5 billion people in this world. That's a lot of people. Each person has his own number has his own file. What's his condition? We speak about the constant monitoring. Each person has his own device. And he's monitored every moment based on what he's bound to. And one person can take somebody else's medication. Everybody has his issues. But whatever those issues are, they're issues that you can contend with. But it's only because of the first tenet of Jewish belief that God is the creator. And God is the one who guides. And each person's challenge that is presented to him, because that's part of the process of achieving what the end result has to be. We know a poor man's challenges are not the challenges of a rich man. A person who's healthy, his challenges are different than a person who's infirm. An elderly person versus young person. Every person has his own issues. But whatever those issues are, it's based on his emotional, mental, and physical makeup. And only God knows what he's able to deal with. The Rambam writes in the laws of Deos, these laws pertain to a person's, has a lot to do with, Rambam speaks as a doctor, not only as a codifier. And he writes over there that you find people are born with many temperaments and many characteristics. You have a person who's born naturally miserly. You find a person who's naturally born stoic. You find a person who's naturally born with a very strong predilection for cruelty. Another person, overly compassionate. But any extreme is something not good, because that characteristic will dictate your life, and it's not your mental capacity to make the evaluation, but initially you're going to start off with a conflict because you're inclined not to do what you should be doing. Either because you're overly compassionate, you may support the cause that you shouldn't support. A person has a certain need to indulge. Another person doesn't even have an interest in eating, being nourished, even for what's the minimum level. Neither is good. Because this is the famous Shvil Azov. The middle road is the golden path. That's the golden path. To be equidistant from both extremes. And the Rambam advises you how to achieve that. It's like a pendulum. When you go to the opposite direction, long enough, ultimately, when the pendulum swings, you're going to be in the equidistant point, which is the center. So we're all born. Why is one person born with a need to indulge physically, and the other person is stoic? Another person is overly giving. Another person is miserly. Neither are good. Why? Because everybody has his own challenges. A rich person has an ego challenge. A poor man, they don't look at him. He has different challenges. It's usually not the ego. Usually not. But that poor man, you got to watch out. If he becomes rich, he's going to have many grind. So he's going to have other kinds of challenges. That the man who's always been rich, he doesn't have those access to grind as the poor man who was abused as a poor man. Now he's rich. Now he's going to give people some of their own medicine. But these are all challenges. Remember, there was an incident in certain areas in New York State. Real estate tax is very high. Depends where you live. And there's certain people in certain areas, they put their homes on the non-taxable ownership because it's a charity and they don't pay tax. And you have multiple people like this. But if they don't pay tax, but the cost of maintaining the county has to be maintained. So what happens? As a result of everybody's taxes go up. They raise everybody's tax. So this person is paying taxes for that other person who should be taxing taxes. And therefore, the other person is doing the wrong thing. And the cost factor is upon everybody else to share. And people are upset. And people talk about it. So I once heard this conversation. This person upset, he's really letting off steam, look at these people, this and that, and he's saying things which are really inappropriate. See, they're two separate situations. A person may do the wrong thing, but if you can't make a correction on that wrong thing, what the other person's doing, you're paying more than your share in tax because the other person's not paying his share. But if you really believe, and that's what I said to the person then, the Talmud tells us in two locations, the then one's yearly stipend is set from Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah. That's your yearly stipend. So whether the other person pays the tax, doesn't pay the tax, God set your stipend. So factually speaking, what you're paying, you're supposed to pay. That was part of the equation. God took that into account. Is the other person doing the wrong thing? The answer is yes. But to have a claim against him and to talk, what we call Lashon Hara, to speak negatively about that person, if you could go personally and speak to him and explain to him he's doing the wrong thing, or make a correction, you should do that. But just to talk about him where it has no value, you're saying you're doing the wrong thing. But if you really believe that your yearly stipend, financial, is preset, the man's hand's not in your pocket. No? So maybe that's an eye-opener. Maybe, although we believe things, but in reality, it's not reality. Because if it would be internalized, you'd have no reason to speak about this other person. If Hashem, if God himself is Borei Umani, V'osav V'osav Yaseh, if that's your reality, you believe it, what do you in the vernacular, what are you belly aching about? What are you talking about other people? For what reason? Why don't you remain focused and talk about what's something which is more important? So I'm saying this concept we're talking about over here, that God isn't, nothing can happen unless God wants it to happen. That's where it begins, that's where it ends. Nothing evolves or manifests itself only to the degree exactly as God wants it to manifest itself. The reason why an eagle is an eagle, because when God created the eagle, it had a purpose, and that's why the eagle was created. Its plumage, its feathers, its wingspan, its ability to soar like no other bird could soar. Why? Could a person ask a question? Why wasn't I born with wings and I could fly? The answer, you're a human being. You're not a bird, right? The person doesn't even have of course, that's understood. But something that you have relevance to, that you believe and you're bothered, well, the question is, why are you bothered? God writes the script. And as I said, every challenge is tailor-made to each individual. It's not one size fits all. Everyone. You know, if you ever read a little bit about the astronauts going up into space, the gear they wear, medically speaking, it's based on literally on nuances of exactness, oxygen, heart rate, blood pressure. Every aspect of the function within that suit is being monitored, and each monitor is set based on that person's particular medical profile. But how do they make those evaluations? Because there are medical devices that before that person is evaluated, and they know exactly to almost a level that an ordinary doctor or hospital is not able to do it. That's how sophisticated this equipment is. And they gear the medical suit to exactly per astronaut. Every one of us is evaluated before our souls come into this existence and put into a body, the type of body, the persona, whatever it is in that body is all to accommodate that soul, which is the challenges of that soul. Who makes that determination? That's God's determination. But maybe God somehow overdid it. Maybe undersold me. Maybe oversold me. Not possible. God's the creator. He guides. He did, does, and will do. You know, it's like lahavdil. I'm not even making a comparison. Person has 80 years of experience in business, never lost a deal. And the person now just first comes on the playing field and says, no, maybe not right. Maybe you haven't done enough deals to know what's right. God did, does, will do. God's been through the thick and thin of everything, besides God being absolute. And you say, well, God maybe made a mistake. God doesn't make mistakes. So this challenge is a challenge because you can meet the challenge. But I don't think so. Look, you could delude yourself. But again, and if a person is able somehow to reflect it and internalize it, the challenge becomes less of a challenge. Because knowing initially that you could meet that challenge and rise to the challenge and succeed, the challenge is less of a challenge. So it's a mindset. It's a mindset of reality. There's an expression, a person has confidence, not arrogance. A person says, I rise to the challenge. Which person rises to the challenge? The man's not a fool. He's 5'10". He's not staying up against the person who's 7 feet tall and is 6 times his weight, because he knows he can be pummeled and pulverized. That's not called rising to a challenge. That means being a fool. Rising to a challenge means that if it's within my framework or within my capacity, I rise. I don't run from it, because I think I could succeed. But so the more you reflect and understand this reality, temptation has less effect on your life, because you understand it's God who's the one who writes the script and has that tailored program for every one of us, and therefore there's nothing to be concerned about. I think we've already spoken enough about the first tenet. We'll approach the second tenet. Ani mamin b'emunah shleima. I believe with absolute belief. Shabor Yisbarach Shmo, the Creator, His name should be blessed. Hu Yochid. He is uniquely one. Ven Yechidus Kamo B'Shum Panim. And his uniqueness of oneness is nothing's comparable to it under any circumstance, within the realm of any level of understanding. That's who he is. V'hu levado. This again, he's using this term. The first tenet, it says only he made, makes, and will make. V'hu levado, and only he, Elokeinu, is our God. He was, is, and will be. Now let's talk about Hu Levado Elokeinu. Only he is our God. I'd mentioned in the past, not in this particular series, we say after the splitting of the sea and the sea closed on the Egyptians, they sang the song of the sea. And Moshe Rabbeinu led the song, and he said, Mi chamocha be'elim Hashem. Who is as great as you among the Elim? The word Elim means powerful ones. Elim. There's among all the powerful ones, whoever they are, who is comparable to you? Mi chamocha be'elim Hashem. So the word El means power. An angel is called a Kale. Kale. It's one of the unpronounceable names of God. Now, the Sefarno, in his commentary, in the portion of Bereshis, the first portion, he says Elokim is the plural of Kale. Every angel, when it's created, as we saw when God sent the 3 angels to Avram, one was sent to heal Avram, that was Raphael. One was sent to inform Sarah she was going to have a child. And the third one was sent to destroy Sodom. That was Gabriel. It was Raphael, Michael, and Gabriel. They were the 3 angels. Every angel, once you send one angel to function all 3 capacities. So there's a known fact, and an angel is created for one particular mission. So in that area of responsibility, he will perform perfectly. He's God's agent. But his power is only in that area. He cannot go out of that parameter. Each angel has his own parameters, because he's empowered in this area. But God is Elokim. He's the Almighty. Elokim means Almighty. Whatever might is, he's Almighty. So the angel who has the singular ability, which is power, from where does that power emanate? You have a beam. and a blinding light. You've never seen such intense light. Now, what fuels that beam to allow it to glow as it glows? There's an energy source. You shut off that energy source, it goes dark immediately. God is the energy source of all existence, even more than that. So the angel that he's he's all powerful in his area of responsibility within his parameters. Who actually empowers them? God is the empowerer. And who is God himself? All existence only functions with angels. So all these various powers, which are angels, which are empowered in that particular area. So if God is the one who empowers them, he is the Almighty. Each of them is mighty in their parameter. God is, Elohim is Almighty. It's the plural of Kale. So we say the Shema, right? Hear, Israel, the Lord is our God. Almighty, Echad. What does Echad mean? One. He's one and only. What does it mean, one and only? Even the angel. The angel is a manifestation of God's will. The angel has no value unto himself. Without God willing his existence, he wouldn't exist. So he's almighty. He's everything. He's Echad. Nothing exists outside of him. That's Hu Levadu Elokeinu. The relationship we have, it doesn't say, although God is the creator of all mankind and all existence, there's a personalization between ourselves and God. Elokeinu is possessive. He's our Almighty. Ours. This Almighty, who created all existence, and it came about because he's Almighty. We have that personal relationship. We are his people. We are his children. We are his treasure. And we know this because he said it himself. This is not something we're deluding ourselves and convincing ourselves. God himself said it. And who is this Almighty? Hoya Hoviviyah. Yudke Vavke, which is the unpronounceable name of God, which is known as the main name, four-letter name. Hoya Hoviviyah. He was, is, and will be. In reality, which it's too early to discuss now, if God, God in the Zohar, in the Kabbalistic works, is referred to as Ein Sof. There's no end to God. There's no beginning, there's no end. That means if you want to quantify God, he cannot be put within any structure. Regardless of how wide that structure is. There's no beginning, there's no end. God is infinite. So if God is infinite, there's nothing else infinite in existence. God is existence. He doesn't exist within existence. We exist within existence. God is existence. We say in the Agora, Baruch HaMoka Baruch Hu. Blessed is the Mokom. Blessed is he. Baruch Shenasa Torah Amo Yisrael. Blessed is he who gave the Torah to his people Israel. What's Mokom? So the Midrash says, Hu Makomo Shel Olam Vein Olam Makomo. He is the location of the world is not his location. What does that mean? He's the location of the world is not his location. So Chaim Volozhin explains that what is the basis for existence? God willed existence. He willed it. So what is a location? A location has a capacity to contain. So what brought about the reality of existence at every level? God. If God should choose to cease willing existence, doesn't exist. So the basis for existence, he's the makom. He's the location. The world has no relevance to him. He doesn't exist within the world. He is the world because he wills that world. Because if he would cease willing it, there's no world. So that means, Hu Makomo Shalom, he's the basis for the world. but the world is not the basis for him. That's not his location. He is the location. Therefore, we say, Baruch HaMokom, blessed is the location. When we say, God forbid, a person suffers a tragedy and you pay a Shiva visit, when the person's grieving, you say, HaMokom Yinachim Eschem. The Mokom should console you. Now, when a person's grieving and has pain, does anybody know the depth and the breadth and the effect of that pain on that person? He has to be consoled. You hope by speaking to him, having a certain value to that person, you'll somehow soften the pain, assuage the pain. But who's the only one who can really console the person, to extricate himself from that painful moment? Only the Mokom, who's the creator of every aspect, every nuance, our feelings, our entity of being, only he can. Because he is the Mokom, therefore he's the only one who can console you. Because every nuance of pain, emotional, mental, physical, whatever it may be, he's in touch with that. Because he wills that. As a result of it, he's the only one who's able to console you. For that reason. That's HaMokom Yinachem Eschem. For that reason. We're going to stop here. I just want to shut off the...
Rabbi, we'll see you on...